Over the last 15 months, each of our lives has been changed by the pandemic in some way, as we have endeavored to protect our most vulnerable and our healthcare system. Unfortunately, this has included our children and youth, who have, at times, been unable to see friends, attend school, or participate in their favorite sports and activities. Parents across Alberta have expressed deep concerns over the impacts the pandemic and related public health measures have had on our children and youth's social, mental, physical, and educational well-being. As a father of 4, I've seen some of these impacts in my own children. The Child and Youth Wellbeing Review is an acknowledgement of those parents' valid concerns. A commitment to assess pandemic-related impacts on our children and youth, and the first step in a plan to address those impacts. We are here today to announce steps our government is taking to ensure that our children and youth, who have sacrificed so much, are the focus of a sustained and collaborative effort to enhance their well-being and healthy development. Protecting lives and livelihoods goes beyond today, beyond the pandemic, and applies to our children and youth.
Schools, sports and activities, community centres and places of worship have all been affected by steps we've had to take to protect the health of Albertans. For vulnerable or at-risk children and youth, it's been even more difficult. As Minister of Children's Services, but also as a mom, I want to make sure that as government and communities, we're doing all we can to support the well-being and resiliency of our young people. To do that, we first need to understand exactly how Alberta's children and youth are being or have been impacted by the pandemic. That is why I'm so happy to be here to co-chair this work with my colleague and work with experts who we have here today in health, education, well-being, and child development. Together, we will review existing and emerging research, but then also hear from educators, healthcare professionals, researchers, mental health experts, and community partners, not-for-profits, and perhaps most importantly, parents, caregivers, and children and youth themselves. We want to form a precise picture of the challenges children and youth have faced as a result of the pandemic. We're going to look at things like learning loss, development, mental health, and overall well-being, and then look at supports and services to guide our work and lead children and youth to a healthy and happy future. You know, schools have been very safe, that teachers and administrators have done an excellent job, and that we know it is important for students to stay in school and learn in class while they could and as much as they could over the last year. And we as a government really did try to do that, to focus on keeping kids in the classroom. We know it is positive not only for their learning but also for their mental health and well-being. We also have been tracking, certainly through Children's Services. We do have some data. We have data in different government ministries about the impacts of the pandemic on children and youth, but we're also starting to see a couple of other provinces and jurisdictions around the world undertake research in this area. We're seeing statistics from organizations like the Kids Help Phone about the number of calls that they've received in the last year. And so this is a good opportunity for us to not only bring all of that input and emerging research together to take a look at what information do we have as government to help measure the impacts, but also really just to hear from Albertans, hear from parents and caregivers and young people and educators and all of those who work with children and youth to get their ideas, to pinpoint what those impacts have been, and then to help us move forward and either direct or redirect resources and our collective efforts to supporting the well-being and resiliency of these young people.